What's going on? I'll be Fitness Gaming, and you see the title of the video, you know why you're here. Heliod Company. Yeah, let's get started. We're going to jump right into it because I also have a match for you guys here. I'll go over my list, my current list that I'm playing, and then possible ideas that I have for this deck. So we'll start with the lands here. We're playing 5 forests. Most lists play like around 3 or 4. And they'll have like, I have 6 fetch lands and they'll have like 7. Is it 7? Yeah, 7 or 8 fetch lands depending on the list, and they'll cut forests. But lands, pretty self-explanatory. Like, it's almost the same type of lands in these decks, with the exception of some play Gavany Townships, some don't. But the Pendelhaven, the 3 Horizon Canopies, that's pretty standard. Some I've seen lists that play like 2 Temple of Gardens, but then they play like Rager Verge Thickets. I personally like the 4 Temple of Gardens with the 5 forests because in this list, and we are playing the Utopia Sprawl, just makes it a little bit easier to attach that to a forest if need to be. So I haven't had any issues with that. Let's talk about our 1-drops. Arbor Elf, Utopia Sprawl. The other option here is 4 Nobles, 4 Birds, which I think is better with Gavany Township, but right now the way the format is, there's a lot of 1-for-1 removal. There's a lot of fair decks running around, and I think that Utopia Sprawl is really good right now because it's something that your opponent really can't interact with as much as they could with like a Birds or a Noble, but Birds and Nobles do have the advantage, especially if you're playing 1 or 2 Gavany Townships with Conclave Mentor. Now your beatdown plan is a lot better in my opinion, but overall, what this deck is trying to do is trying to combo you out. It's not trying to beat you down. That is the #1 game plan. The beatdown plan is secondary. So I do believe that Utopia Sprawl, based on that plan and based on how the format is, I do think this is slightly better, especially since you can Coco on turn 2 and technically win from there. Our 2-drops, we have Wall of Roots and we have Conclave Mentor. Conclave Mentor, it's in every list. Obviously, it's like, hardened scales on a creature. It also gains life when it dies. It accelerates the beatdown plan. It helps with Spike Feeder coming in with 3 counters instead of 2, which is huge because if your opponent has removal, you have an extra counter you can remove and continue going. Also, another cool trick is if you have a 3/3 Spike Feeder and they go to bolt it, you can actually remove the counter from the Spike Feeder and re-put it on the Spike Feeder, and he will now become a 4/4. I've done that a bunch of times. Pumping my Spike Feeder by an additional counter thanks to Conclave. So very good card, very good with Gavany Township as well. Also very good with Walking Ballista. You get the additional counters, and Utopia Sprawl, Arbor Elf, generating a lot of mana. So a lot of the times you can just have one big Walking Ballista and just beat them down with that and win the game. You don't even need to combo out with this deck, which is what makes these decks so attractive. That they have a very strong beatdown plan, they have value, and they have a combo. It's kind of like you have all the great things that you want in these decks combined into one. We got the combo pieces here. We got the Heliods and we got the Spike Feeders. We got the Ranger Captain of Eels. Just so you guys know, we will be talking a little bit more about the Wall of Roots and other options here because that is a flex spot. But the Ranger Captain of Eels is a card that I normally used to play too. The more I've played the deck, the more I've realized how good this card really is in this deck. Now, you have your obvious reasons, right? It gets your win condition Walking Ballista. It can silence the opponent on your turn so that you can go for the combo and not worry about interaction. But there are a lot of games that I've won where I've silenced the opponent on their turn, especially like, for example, Tron. They got Tron on turn 3. I silenced them. They can't do anything. Passes to me, I win the game, bada beam, bada boo, pack them up, send them fishing. So this card, very strong. I think 4 of is the right number currently. You could probably go down to 3, but I don't think you could go down any less than that. Skyclave, again, very powerful card. I don't think you need more than 3. You could go 4 and replace a Ranger. That's up to you and depending on your metagame. This deck, again, like, it's not really trying to interact with the opponent. This card, Skyclave, is really here just to get rid of anything that's preventing you from winning the game. It's not really there to like get rid of creatures and stuff like that because you're just, if they're just playing creatures, you're most likely just going to win that matchup by comboing out or just having bigger creatures than them. I haven't had a situation where I'm like really desperate to kill one of their creatures, to be honest, with this deck. Spike Feeder, part of the combo. Collected Company helps get this combo online extremely fast. Archangel of Thune, win condition, and Walking Ballista, and also Conclave can serve as a win condition when you're comboing out because they get additional counters. Archangel of Thune is a very strong card on its own as well within the deck, and because we are playing Wall of Roots and Utopia Sprawl, the card is very easy to pull off on turn, up to turn 3, as early as turn 3. Very dangerous card. But let's talk about Wall of Roots here. Wall of Roots is a flex spot. A lot of people right now are playing Auriok Champion. I think that card is very strong, obviously. I also like Wall of Roots. I've also play tested with Wall of Blossoms. Another card that I'm interested in play testing with is Voice of Resurgence, because Voice of Resurgence is a really good value beatdown style card, which I think would give this deck a better beatdown strategy. And the combo will kind of stay the same, right? Won't hurt the combo, but it makes your beatdown a lot better. But if we did do that, I would replace the Arbor Elves and Utopia Sprawls with Birds of Paradise and Nobles, just because that makes the Voice of Resurgence that much better. I would then also replace the Pendle Haven for a second Gavany Township, because that also makes the deck better. But that's just an idea that I have. Sideboard, pretty self-explanatory to like everybody's playing right now, based on the format. But very customizable sideboard, especially when you have Collected Company. All right, let's jump into the game here. All right. So this game here, we're playing against Griselbrand. Now, obviously, I do not know that. We are on the play. This is a solid hand here. We have, we don't have a turn 1 play, but we do have the Wall of Roots. And this is one of the reasons I like playing cards like Wall of Roots, because if we didn't have a mana accelerator in this hand, then the hand is like pretty mediocre. But because we have Wall of Roots, we can pretty much guarantee a turn 3 Coco if there is no real interaction. And because both can't kill Wall of Roots, now it forces them to have Fatal Push and other ways of removal. So right now, opponent plays Black Lace Cliffs. All I'm thinking is, okay, we're playing against Jund. They didn't have a discard spell, but they definitely have a Bolt or a Fatal Push, which is fine because we drew the Utopia Sprawl, which again, why I mentioned I think Utopia Sprawl is a little bit well positioned here than the Mana Dorks. But again, the Mana Dorks do have a reason to be played depending on the build of your deck. So here, as you can tell, the deck accelerates in its mana extremely fast with the addition of Wall of Roots. I mean, if we had Archangel of Thune, we could just play it next turn. But here the opponent casts this, and I'm like, okay, are we playing against some type of dredge deck? What's going on here? Definitely not. And then I see the Griselbrand hit the yard. And I wanted to share this matchup here with you guys, because I really wanted to show you the power of Heliod Company. Here we have a second turn Griselbrand. Second turn Griselbrand, my friends. And I think any other deck would have just folded to this. Would have just lost. It would have been over for them. But because we're playing Heliod Company, we don't care. We don't care. We can still beat this. And it gets even worse. Just keep watching. So, I let the opponent know that was savage. Because it was. Second turn Griselbrand in Modern is, I don't know, pretty busted if you ask me. Opponent with 12 cards in hands at 18 life. And we have a Wall of Roots in play. That's right, folks. We have a Wall of Roots compared to their board. So they're going to exile their Griselbrand here. They got their value. Opponent lets me know, haha, it's good when it works. I'm assuming it's working. I'm assuming it's working. Sure looks that way. So this is one of the downsides of playing these Griselbrand decks, in my opinion, especially when you go this fast, is that, sure, he has 19 cards. He or she has 19 cards in their hand, or should I say the opponent, because we can't assume their gender. But assuming, they have 19 cards, but they're going to go back to 7, So, not sure. I mean, yeah, you can shape your hand to whatever you want it to, but I don't know. So we see some other creatures there, some Lingering Souls. There's a lot of fun stuff. Another Griselbrand, the 2 Griselbrands. They put a Bolt in the yard, which is interesting. But, that means maybe they have more bolts. I'm not sure. Sometimes these decks don't care about killing our creatures because they're just going to go over the top. So here, the option is to play Heliod or Collect the Company. I go with Collect the Company because we could technically win the game with Collect the Company. Also, because we have so much mana, like we can always just cast the Heliod and an additional spell next turn anyways. But we hit 2 pieces of the combo here, which is just phenomenal. Obviously, we would rather hit the Heliod and the Spike, but Conclave and Spike Feeder with a Heliod in hand, that's very, very good. Opponent here hits us with the Thoughtseize. So I'm already thinking, okay, so we're not going to win the game with the combo, so we're going to have to beat down, which is fine. We actually have a good beatdown plan in place. Turn 3 Griselbrand. So we had a turn 2 Griselbrand and a turn 3 back-to-back Griselbrands. I mean, I don't know. Seems pretty busted to me. You guys let me know. Let me know. I feel like I should have lost this game. I feel like this deck did exactly what it needed to do. And, you know, obviously we haven't drawn bad ourselves, but we're not drawing like top tier, you know, 10 out of 10 out of our deck. I mean, we are doing good. But here we go. We go ahead and get rid of the Horizon Canopy. But you guys let me know in the comment box and let me know if the opponent is playing this deck optimally or if maybe they should have played a little bit differently. So, Gavany Township, a very good card in this deck, like I always mention, and I'm about to show you why. So, obviously, the opponent is very dangerous. I mean, they're basically back-to-back Griselbrands here. The fact that we're able to pump our Spike Feeder here so largely is going to assure us that even if they play another Griselbrand, we're going to be able to survive it. So here we're going to get in for a nice chunk of damage. And at this point here, all I'm thinking is, I'm not sure what the opponent can do to get out of this spot. Even though they've just played back-to-back Griselbrand and have drawn a ton of cards. And we're coming in with like a Spike Feeder and a Conclave Mentor and a Wall of Roots. Pretty ridiculous, but I'm just thinking, how do we lose this game here? I can't really think of how we lose because I'm not too familiar with this deck, but I'm just thinking, okay, I don't think we're going to lose. And we have Life with Spike Feeder and we have Beatdown with Conclave. But you never know. So opponent does have some pretty scary creatures in the yard here. But again, I don't see anything in there that can like just beat us, but I could be wrong. So opponent concedes here. You know, obviously if they would have passed the turn, we just kill them. So that tells us they had nothing. So sideboarding here, right? You know, we could bring in Wheel of Sun and Moon. We could bring in Scavenging Ooze. We can bring in Veil of Summer. We can bring in Path to Exile. These are all cards that are decent. But I'm giving props to the opponent there about their deck. It's a very nice deck. I mean, turn 2, turn 3, Griselbrand, that's pretty sick. But overall, man, I think we just need the path for the Griselbrand. I'm assuming, opponent lets us know they should have not discarded the Bolt. I agree, but I don't want to sound rude or sound like I know how to play that deck because I don't. And I didn't want to explain to the opponent, I don't know, you know, but whatever. Actually, when they discarded the Bolt, I actually mentioned it, but I felt that they had another one. Anyways, back to this. So, as for sideboarding, just playing that game out, the fact that our opponent, from what we saw, went like 10 out of 10, right? Second turn, Griselbrand, third turn, Griselbrand, drawing a bunch of cards. It kind of makes you feel like, do I even need to sideboard against them, right? Because if we won that game by beatdown, not even what our second plan, not even our main plan, our second plan, why they went hamburger and cheese, like, do we even need to sideboard? But to me, I'm like, all right, well, let's bring in the Path to Exile. Path to Exile is definitely going to get rid of the Griselbrands, or any creature they put in. And I mean, if that's the only thing that they're doing, then I don't see any other way they can beat us. But again, pretty insane how strong excuse me, how strong this Heliod Company deck is. And this is another reason why I think Voice of Resurgence might actually be something to consider putting in these decks. So the hand here that we have, good hand. You know, we got turn 3 kill, assuming the opponent does not interact. And we have a way to fetch out a Walking Ballista if need to be. But, I mean, we basically have every piece to the combo that we need, plus an accelerant. Like, really, really good hand. Now, the fact that the opponent let me know here that they should have not discarded the Bolt, and they did lose to the beatdown plan, I am assuming that they're bringing in way more removal, which for me, I take it as good news, because that means we're not going to the chances of us seeing turn 2, turn 3 Griselbrand are going to be very slim, and I'm okay with that. If that's your win condition and now you have to dilute it in order to keep up with what we're doing, I'm okay with that. Like, that means that you're playing the game on our terms, and that's going to give us an advantage. So Conclave Mentor here, we're not missing a beat. I usually like to lead with Heliod because Heliod is, you know, enchantment / indestructible creature or whatnot that is very hard to interact with. So that's why I always like to lead with it over the Spike Feeder. Opponent playing a card here that I've never seen, Throne of Death, just to mill. I'm assuming that's just to be able to get Griselbrand and creatures in the yard. So then they get rid of the Conclave, and I'm looking at their hand. I'm like, all right, they got 3 cards. They're at 16, and they've, you know, pretty much just got rid of 2 of our okay creatures. And I'm already thinking, okay, if our opponent's going to be spending their game plan just getting rid of our creatures, like, we're going to win this game fairly easily because, 1, they're not going to have enough cards to do that. 2, they're not doing what their deck needs to do in order to win the game. Unless they have another way of winning the game, which I am not aware of. If you guys are, please comment at the bottom and let me know. But I'm just assuming they have to windmill slam one of these big creatures from the yard into play. And we already have 50% of the combo in play, which they cannot interact with. And we have Captain, which is going to also be able to silence them. So, opponent here, Collective Brutality, 1 card in hand. I really don't think they have anything they could draw into to win the game at this point. I mean, they can have a Fatal Push and Fatal Push to Spike Feeder, but, like, what are you really doing? Opponent lets us know, yuck. That basically just tells me that they're done. GG, opponent lets us know here. Of course, GG to our opponent. Good games. But there you have it, folks. I mean, you know, people always say this deck is extremely strong. I cannot disagree. This deck is very strong. There's a reason why this is one of the top deck in Modern currently. I mean, the deck is brutal. It has a combo, but as you've seen here, we didn't even need the combo to win the game. And on top of that, we played against a deck that played a turn 2 Griselbrand and a turn 3. I don't know about you guys, but if you have a deck in Modern that can survive a turn 2 and a turn 3 Griselbrand without having to interact, and by beating down, not doing some fancy combo, definitely is something you should be looking into. If you're into these green-white decks, I think this is it. I think this is the deck that we need to be playing currently. We have to go all in. I think this is the deck. Guys, this deck is extremely strong for all my green-white, you know, mono-white Death and Taxes style players out there. This is the deck I think that we need to start playing because it's going to get us a lot of free wins currently. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or any recommendations for my gameplay or the opponent's gameplay or cards that I should maybe change up with, or maybe why I'm super bad for playing Wall of Roots over Auriok Champion currently, please let me know. I'm open for all the feedback. There is no ego here. I am here to learn. I'm here to teach you guys what I'm learning so that we can build a stronger community and become better Magic players, especially playing these style of decks. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for the support and love. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share my video. It helps out a lot. And peace out.